The massive crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched toward the stars, their surfaces gleaming like diamonds under the light of 3 different suns. Today was special. Every year, the most advanced alien civilizations in the galaxy gathered here to show off their incredible technology. This was the Zephyrian Trade Consortium's annual technology summit, and it was like nothing humans had ever seen before. Thousands of alien beings filled the enormous exhibition halls. Some looked like walking crystals that chimed when they moved. Others were made of pure energy, floating like colorful clouds. There were creatures with dozens of tentacles, beings that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and aliens so strange that human eyes could barely understand what they were looking at. Each alien race brought their most amazing inventions. The crystalline hegemony displayed machines that could bend space and time itself. These antimatter processors hummed with power that could fuel entire star systems. The ethereal collective showed off neural networks that connected billions of minds across multiple galaxies, thinking thoughts so complex that they made human supercomputers look like pocket calculators. Biomechanical creatures that were part machine, part living organism crawled and slithered through the displays, fixing themselves when damaged and growing new parts as needed. The aliens were proud of their technology. They had every right to be. These machines could do things that seemed like magic to most species in the galaxy. They could create matter from nothing, travel faster than light without ships, and solve problems that would take human scientists centuries to even understand. Then, the human delegation arrived. Engineer Minho pushed a simple metal cart through the exhibition hall doors. Behind him, his team wheeled in more carts loaded with what looked like spare parts from an old factory. The machines were big, heavy, and made of plain steel and iron. You could see every bolt, every gear, every wire. Oil stains marked the metal surfaces. Sparks still flew from some of the welding joints that weren't quite finished. These weren't sleek, beautiful devices. They looked like something a mechanic might build in his garage on the weekend. The reaction was immediate. Alien beings throughout the hall stopped what they were doing and stared. Then the laughter started. It began as quiet chuckles and whispers, but soon grew into open mockery that echoed through the massive chamber. Ambassador Veltar of the crystalline hegemony was the first to speak up. His crystal body rang like a bell as he laughed. "Look at this barbaric clockwork," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Are these humans still living in their planet's Stone Age? These crude machines belong in a museum, not a technology summit." The gaseous ethereals, floating like multicolored smoke above the crowd, whispered among themselves in voices that sounded like wind through leaves. "How quaint," they said. "Metal toys for primitive minds. Do they really think these ancient relics can compete with our quantum consciousness networks?" Sua, the team's senior technician, stood quietly beside their fusion reactor. It was a massive, boxy machine with thick metal walls and cooling pipes that hissed with steam. Compared to the ethereal's invisible energy processors, or the hegemony's crystal matrices that seemed to pull power from empty space, it looked impossibly crude and outdated. The alien dignitaries circled around the human displays like predators, examining wounded prey. They pointed at the hydraulic systems that moved with obvious mechanical motion instead of silent anti-grav lifts. They laughed at the computer displays with simple text readouts instead of 3-dimensional holographic interfaces. They mocked the backup systems, the manual controls, the thick cables and heavy switches. "Inefficient brute force," declared a representative from the Void Swimmers, creatures that lived in the empty space between stars. "Why use so much metal and energy when elegant solutions exist? These humans clearly lack the intelligence for proper engineering." More aliens joined, and the insults flew like arrows. Primitive, outdated, embarrassing. The humans stood quietly, their faces showing no emotion, but you could feel the tension building in the air. Finally, Lord Commander Zixthul stepped forward. He was enormous, even by alien standards, with armor that seemed to be made of living, shadow and eyes that glowed like distant stars. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered entire star systems. "Humans," he said, his words dripping with contempt. "Your presence here is almost insulting to the advanced civilizations of this galaxy. However, I am curious to see just how badly your primitive toys will fail against real technology. I challenge your species to participate in the upcoming Trials of Supremacy." The massive hall fell silent. The Trials of Supremacy were legendary. They were the ultimate test of technological capability, where each species had to prove their machines could handle the most dangerous and difficult challenges in the galaxy. Most species considered it an honor just to be invited to participate. For the humans, it seemed like a death sentence. "We accept," Minho said simply, his voice calm and steady. The aliens erupted in laughter again, but this time it was different. This was the laughter of predators who had just been handed easy prey. They were already planning the jokes they would tell for centuries about the day the humans thought they could compete with advanced galactic technology. None of them noticed the small smile that crossed Sua's face, or the confident way the human engineers began checking their equipment. The aliens saw only crude metal and primitive design. They had no idea what they were really looking at. The artificial moon orbiting Nexus Prime was unlike anything in human space. Built entirely for testing the most dangerous technologies in the galaxy, it was a sphere of reinforced metal and energy fields that could contain explosions powerful enough to crack planets. Deep inside its core, the proving ground stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with obstacles and challenges that had destroyed countless machines over the centuries. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations gathered in the observation decks high above the testing floor. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Today they would finally see just how badly human technology would fail against the real challenges of advanced engineering. The first trial was announced with fanfare that echoed through the massive chamber. The challenge seemed simple enough to describe, but every engineer in the galaxy knew it was one of the most dangerous tasks possible. Scattered across the testing floor were formations of rare quantum crystals, each one glowing with unstable energy that flickered between dimensions. These crystals were incredibly valuable, used in the most advanced technologies across the galaxy, but extracting them was like performing surgery on a live bomb. The quantum formations were delicate beyond imagination. One wrong move, one tiny vibration at the wrong frequency, and the crystals would trigger a cascade failure that could tear holes in reality itself. The energy release would be enough to vaporize everything within several kilometers. Even the testing facility's massive shields might not be enough to contain the explosion. The crystalline hegemony went first. Their representative was a being of living crystal, its body resonating with perfect harmonic frequencies. As it approached the quantum formations, its crystalline form began to sing, producing tones so pure and precise that they made the air itself vibrate in perfect harmony. The alien moved like a dancer, its body shifting and changing to match the exact resonance frequency of each crystal formation. Where it touched, the quantum crystals separated from their unstable matrix like flowers blooming in slow motion. Not a single fluctuation disturbed the delicate energy patterns. It was beautiful to watch, like a ballet performed at the atomic level. Next came the ethereal collective. Their representative was barely visible, a shimmering cloud of energy that seemed to exist partially in another dimension. The ethereal being simply phased through solid matter, passing through the quantum formations like a ghost walking through walls. Its ghostly fingers reached into the heart of each crystal matrix, plucking out the valuable crystals without ever actually touching the unstable energy fields around them. The technique was so advanced that most species in the galaxy couldn't even understand how it worked. Other alien species followed, each demonstrating technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The void swimmers deployed gravity manipulators that created tiny black holes, using their immense gravitational pull to carefully extract crystals without physical contact. The temporal masters froze small areas of spacetime itself, allowing them to work on the crystals while they existed outside the normal flow of time. The Nano Collective sent clouds of microscopic robots that could restructure reality at the molecular level, simply convincing the crystals to separate themselves from their dangerous formations. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last. The alien technologies were so advanced, so elegant, that they seemed like magic. There was no visible effort, no obvious machinery, just pure application of scientific principles that humanity was still centuries away from understanding. Then, it was humanity's turn. Gina climbed into the cockpit of their mining mech, and the difference was immediately obvious to everyone watching. Where the alien technologies were sleek, invisible, or elegantly biological, the human machine was a massive, bulky contraption of metal and hydraulics. It looked like it had been built in a factory decades ago and then used hard for every day since. Scars and dents marked its thick armor plating. Oil stains and welding marks covered its surface. The cockpit was cramped and filled with analog gauges, manual switches, and backup systems for the backup systems. As Gina powered up the mech, it came to life with a symphony of mechanical sounds. Hydraulic systems hissed as pressure built up in the lines. Electric motors whined as they spun up to speed. Cooling fans roared to life, and the entire machine vibrated with the power of its internal systems. Compared to the silent elegance of alien technology, it sounded like a construction site. The aliens in the observation decks began laughing again. Some pointed at the crude-looking drill bits and heavy mechanical arms. Others mocked the thick cables and the clouds of steam that rose from the cooling systems. To them, it looked like humanity had brought a steam shovel to a surgical operation. Gina ignored the laughter and began moving the mech toward the first quantum formation. The machine moved slowly, each step deliberate and careful. The mechanical, arms extended with hydraulic precision, positioning sensors around the unstable crystals. The drill bits rotated at carefully calculated speeds, their metal surfaces gleaming under the artificial lights. What the aliens couldn't see, was what was really happening. The crude-looking sensors were reading quantum fluctuations, with an accuracy that matched the best alien equipment. The primitive-seeming computer systems were running calculations thousands of times per second, adapting to each crystal's unique energy signature in real time. The heavy mechanical systems were moving with precision measured in fractions of millimeters, every vibration controlled and dampened. The first crystal came free with barely a whisper of disturbed energy. Then the second, then the third. The mech worked steadily through the formation, its operators reading displays that showed quantum field fluctuations, energy cascade probabilities, and structural stability measurements that would have impressed alien engineers if they had bothered to look closely. But they weren't looking closely. They were too busy laughing at the steam and the noise and the obvious mechanical nature of everything they could see. They missed the fact that every single crystal was extracted without a single dangerous fluctuation. They didn't notice that. The human mech was working just as fast as their most advanced technologies, completing the task with zero margin for error. When Minho's team finished the extraction, the testing ground fell silent. Not a single cascade failure. Not one unstable energy reading. The quantum crystals sat in their containment fields, perfectly extracted and completely safe. The human machine had matched the performance of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, and it had done it with technology that looked like it belonged in a museum. The laughter in the observation decks died away, replaced by confused murmurs and uncomfortable silence. For the first time since the trials began, some of the alien observers began to wonder if they had underestimated these strange beings from the edge of the galaxy. The second trial was announced with less fanfare than the first. The alien observers had seen humans succeed once, but they convinced themselves it was just luck. This next challenge would surely expose the primitiveness of human technology for what it really was. The testing ground transformed before their eyes, shifting and reshaping itself into something that defied every law of physics they understood. The maze stretched out across the proving ground like a nightmare made real. Its walls shifted and moved constantly, made of materials that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. But the real horror wasn't the maze itself. It was what happened inside it. The testing facility's computers began altering the fundamental laws of reality within the maze boundaries. Gravity could point in any direction or disappear entirely. Time could slow to a crawl or speed up until seconds became hours. Matter could phase between solid, liquid, gas, and states that had no names. Reality itself could tear open, creating gaps in existence that led to nowhere. This wasn't just a test of navigation or problem-solving. This was a test of whether technology could function when the universe itself stopped making sense. The maze was designed to break machines by changing the very rules they were built to follow. The crystalline hegemony went first again, confident that their advanced technology could handle anything the maze threw at them. Their crystal-based machines entered the maze singing with harmonic frequencies, their bodies resonating with perfect mathematical precision. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. The crystalline technology adapted to minor gravitational shifts and temporal fluctuations with elegant ease. Then the maze decided to get serious. Gravity suddenly reversed, pointing straight up instead of down. The crystalline machines, built to resonate with specific gravitational frequencies, couldn't adapt fast enough. Their perfect harmonic structures shattered like wine glasses hit by a sledgehammer. Fragments of crystal technology scattered across the maze floor, their beautiful songs turning into discordant death rattles. The ethereal collective's turn was even more spectacular in its failure. Their phase-shifting technology allowed them to exist partially outside normal reality, which worked perfectly under normal conditions. But when the maze began creating temporal loops, areas where time folded back on itself, their advanced systems became trapped. The ethereal beings found themselves stuck in endless cycles, trying to phase through the same wall over and over again for what might have been seconds or centuries. Their quantum consciousness, so sophisticated under normal conditions, couldn't process the contradiction of experiencing the same moment repeatedly while being aware that time was supposed to move forward. The other alien species fared no better. The Void Swimmer's gravity manipulators created feedback loops when the maze's gravity fields interfered with their technology. The Temporal Master's time control devices sparked and exploded when they encountered areas where time moved in multiple directions simultaneously. The Nano Collective's reality restructuring nanites went insane, trying to restructure reality that was already restructuring itself, creating cascading failures that spread through their entire system like a technological plague. One by one, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations watched their masterpiece technologies reduced to expensive scrap metal by conditions that shouldn't have been possible. The sophisticated AI systems that controlled most alien technology simply couldn't handle contradictory physics. How do you program a computer to function when the laws of mathematics change randomly? How do you build a machine to work in gravity when gravity might point in 6 different directions at once? Then Tay stepped forward with humanity's entry for the second trial. What he wheeled out looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage from spare parts found at a scrapyard. The collection of rovers, drones, and repair bots didn't match each other in design, color, or apparent age. Some looked like they had been built decades ago and rebuilt a dozen times since. Others appeared to be held together with metal tape and determination. Wires ran everywhere in seemingly random patterns. Backup systems had backup systems, and those had backup systems of their own. The alien observers barely bothered to hide their laughter this time. If humanity's previous machine had looked primitive, these contraptions looked like they belonged in a museum of ancient technology. Surely there was no way these mechanical relics could succeed where the galaxy's most advanced systems had failed, catastrophically. The human machines entered the maze, and immediately the differences became apparent. While alien technology had tried to work by understanding and predicting the changing laws of physics, human technology took a completely different approach. It was built to work regardless of what the laws of physics were doing. When gravity reversed, the mechanical gyroscopes inside each machine kept spinning in their original orientation. They didn't need to understand which way was up. They just maintained their own internal reference point. When time dilated and quantum processors throughout the maze started running at impossible speeds or grinding to complete halts, the human machines kept functioning with simple clockwork mechanisms that ticked along at their own steady pace, unaffected by external time distortions. The most impressive demonstration came when the maze began phase-shifting matter between different states. Alien metamaterials designed to be perfectly efficient under normal conditions collapsed when the fundamental nature of matter changed around them. But the human machines were built with simple mechanical linkages, metal rods connected to metal joints connected to metal gears. When matter shifted phases, the metal stayed metal. When the connections changed, The mechanical systems adapted by simply bending or flexing instead of breaking. Sua watched from the control station as her systems reported back through the chaos. Every human machine was designed for something alien. Technology wasn't. Graceful failure. When something broke, it broke in a way that didn't destroy the whole system. When conditions changed beyond design parameters, the machines found ways to keep working with whatever still functioned. When repairs were needed, they could be made with basic tools and spare parts that any mechanic would recognize. The most sophisticated part of human technology wasn't the advanced computers or precision engineering. It was the philosophy behind the design. Every system was built assuming that everything would go wrong at the worst possible moment, and the machine would need to keep working anyway. As the human machines successfully navigated challenges that had destroyed alien technology worth more than entire star systems, the laughter in the observation decks died away completely. Alien engineers began taking notes, trying to understand how such apparently primitive technology could outperform their masterpieces. For the first time in galactic history, the most advanced civilizations in the universe were learning engineering, lessons from a species they had dismissed as primitive. The tide was beginning to turn, and some of the more perceptive aliens were starting to realize that they might have seriously underestimated these strange beings from the outer rim of the galaxy. The humans weren't just succeeding by accident. They were succeeding because their technology was built on fundamentally different principles than anything else in the galaxy, and those principles were starting to look less primitive and more revolutionary with every passing moment. The final trial was announced with grim ceremony. After watching their advanced technologies fail in ways they never thought possible, the alien civilizations were desperate to prove that their superiority wasn't just an illusion. This last challenge would be the ultimate test, not just of individual machines, but of entire technological philosophies. The task was simple to describe but almost impossible to accomplish. Build a working space elevator on the most hostile planet in the known galaxy. The testing facility's massive transporters moved every participant to the surface of Infernus Prime, a world so dangerous that most species considered it uninhabitable even with the best protective technology. The planet was a nightmare of extremes that changed without warning. Surface temperatures could swing from hot enough to melt titanium to cold enough to freeze atmospheric gases solid, sometimes within minutes. The atmosphere itself was unstable, shifting between clouds of acid that could dissolve starship hulls and hard vacuum that would boil unprotected blood instantly. But the real killer was the gravitational anomalies. Ancient alien experiments had left scars in space-time itself around this world. Gravity could suddenly multiply tenfold, crushing anything not built to withstand the pressure. It could reverse direction, sending unsecured objects flying into space. It could create pockets where gravitational forces pulled in multiple directions at once, tearing apart anything caught in the conflicting fields. As if all that wasn't enough, the planet's surface was defended by automated systems left behind by some long-dead civilization. Attack drones the size of buildings patrolled the skies, firing energy weapons that could crack mountains. Defense turrets rose from the ground to target anything that moved. The ancient war machines didn't care what they were shooting at. They had been programmed to destroy anything that tried to build permanent structures on their world. The space elevator had to stretch from the planet's surface all the way to orbital altitude, remaining functional despite all these hazards. It needed to carry cargo up and down, despite temperature swings, atmospheric changes, gravitational chaos, and constant attacks from automated defenses. Most engineering teams would have declared the task impossible before even beginning. The crystalline hegemony attacked the problem with their most advanced construction technology. They deployed matter compilers, machines that could literally reshape reality at the atomic level. These devices could create any material needed, design structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and build with precision measured in individual atoms. The crystalline engineers began constructing their space elevator from materials that didn't naturally exist, creating new forms of matter designed specifically for this impossible environment. For the first hour, their approach seemed to be working. The matter compilers built the elevator's foundation from crystalline materials that could withstand extreme temperatures and resist acid corrosion. The structure grew upward at incredible speed, each section perfectly designed for the specific challenges it would face at that altitude. Then the quantum fluctuations hit. The planet's unstable gravitational field was interfering with the quantum mechanics that made matter compilation possible. The sophisticated machines that worked by manipulating reality at the subatomic level couldn't function when the fundamental forces of physics kept changing randomly. One by one, the matter compilers crashed, their quantum processors overwhelmed by contradictory data about what atoms were supposed to do. The partially completed elevator began to collapse as its exotic materials reverted to more stable forms that couldn't handle the extreme conditions. The ethereal collective tried a different approach. They deployed swarm intelligences, billions, of microscopic robots that could work together like a single vast mind. Each individual robot was smaller than a grain of sand, but together they could coordinate construction projects on a scale that organic minds couldn't even comprehend. The swarm began building the elevator from the bottom up, with each tiny robot contributing its small part to a design too complex for any single intelligence to understand. The swarm intelligence was beautiful to watch. Billions of microscopic lights moved in perfect coordination, like a galaxy of stars dancing to music only they could hear. They worked at the atomic level, placing each molecule exactly where it needed to be for maximum strength and efficiency, but beauty couldn't protect them from the electromagnetic storms that raged across Infernus Prime's surface. Massive lightning strikes, some containing more energy than entire power plants, lanced down from the chaotic atmosphere. The delicate communication networks that allowed the microscopic robots to work together were fried instantly. Without coordination, billions of tiny machines scattered like confused insects, their collective intelligence shattered into meaningless noise. The temporal masters deployed their most advanced technology, temporal accelerators that could compress months of construction time into hours. They planned to build their space elevator so quickly that the hostile environment wouldn't have time to destroy it. Time distortion fields surrounded their construction site, creating pockets where workers could labor for subjective weeks while only minutes passed in the outside world. The temporal acceleration worked perfectly at first. Inside the time fields, construction proceeded at incredible speed. The elevator's structure grew kilometer by kilometer as the accelerated workers had time to solve each challenge as it arose. But Infernus Prime had temporal distortions of its own, left behind by the same ancient civilization that had created the automated defenses. When the artificial time fields met the natural temporal anomalies, they created feedback loops that trapped the construction teams in causality loops. The temporal masters found themselves building the same section of elevator over and over again, unable to break free from recursive time streams that folded back on themselves. One by one, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations watched their ultimate technologies fail against challenges they had never imagined. The sophisticated systems that had conquered star systems and reshaped entire worlds couldn't handle a single hostile planet that refused to follow the rules. Then Minho stepped forward with humanity's construction equipment. What he deployed looked like it had been salvaged from the scrapyards of a dozen different worlds. Massive mechanical construction vehicles that ran on simple chemical fuel. Crude rockets that looked like they had been built in factories centuries ago. Armies of repair drones that resembled flying toolboxes more than sophisticated robots. Everything was oversized, over-engineered, and built from materials that any species in the galaxy would consider primitive. The alien observers prepared for humanity's final humiliation. Surely these mechanical dinosaurs would be destroyed within minutes by challenges that had defeated the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The human machines began working, and immediately the differences became apparent. When quantum fluctuations crashed sophisticated computer systems, the human construction vehicles kept running on mechanical control systems that didn't care about subatomic particle behavior. When electromagnetic storms fried delicate electronics, the human equipment kept functioning with shielded systems and analog backups that worked regardless of electrical interference. The crude rockets that carried prefabricated elevator sections into position flew true despite gravitational anomalies that had confused advanced navigation systems. Their simple mechanical guidance systems used gyroscopes and accelerometers that responded to actual physical forces rather than theoretical calculations about what gravity should be doing. Most impressive were the repair drones. While alien technology had been designed to work perfectly under ideal conditions, human machines were designed to break gracefully and be fixed quickly. When automated defense systems damaged the elevator structure, swarms of repair drones descended on the damage like mechanical insects. They didn't need sophisticated AI or advanced materials. They just needed basic tools, spare parts, and the simple programming to fix whatever was broken. The human construction team worked steadily through every challenge Infernus Prime threw at them. Temperature swings that had shattered exotic materials were handled by simple thermal expansion joints and redundant cooling systems. Atmospheric changes that had corroded advanced metamaterials were managed by protective coatings and replaceable outer layers. Gravitational anomalies that had torn apart precisely calibrated structures were absorbed by flexible joints and over-engineered safety margins. As the human space elevator grew steadily toward orbital altitude, the alien observers fell into stunned silence. They were witnessing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about advanced engineering. The most primitive-looking technology in the galaxy was succeeding where their masterpieces had failed completely. For the first time in galactic history, the universe's most advanced civilizations were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Maybe there was more than one way to solve engineering problems, and maybe their way wasn't automatically the best way. The human space elevator reached orbital altitude with a final mechanical clank that echoed across the proving grounds of Infernus Prime. Around it, the wreckage of alien construction projects littered the hostile planet's surface like monuments to failed ambition. Crystalline structures lay shattered by gravitational anomalies. Swarm intelligence robots wandered aimlessly without their collective mind. Temporal accelerators sparked and smoked in causality loops that might never end. But the human elevator stood complete and functional, its mechanical systems humming with steady reliability. Despite everything the hostile world had thrown at it, cargo pods were already moving up and down its length, carrying supplies and equipment as if the extreme conditions around them were nothing more than a mild inconvenience. The silence in the observation areas was deafening. For centuries, these alien civilizations had built their identities around technological superiority. They had conquered star systems with machines that seemed like magic, solved problems that younger species couldn't even understand, and looked down on any technology that didn't meet their standards of elegance and efficiency. Now they stared at a space elevator built from what looked like scavenged parts, watching it work flawlessly while their masterpieces lay in ruins around it. The cognitive dissonance was almost painful to witness. Everything they thought they knew about advanced engineering had just been turned upside down. Ambassador Veltar of the crystalline hegemony was the first to break the stunned silence. His crystal form had lost its musical resonance, producing discordant notes that reflected his inner turmoil. For the first time in his long life, he approached a member of another species not as a superior being granting an audience, but as a student seeking to understand something beyond his comprehension. He found Gina performing routine maintenance on one of the human construction mechs, her hands covered in grease as she replaced a worn hydraulic seal. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. An ambassador who commanded the respect of entire star systems, approaching a human mechanic who was literally getting her hands dirty with manual labor. I must understand," Veltar said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "Your machines are crude, primitive, built from materials we discarded millennia ago. Yet they succeeded where our most advanced technology failed catastrophically. How is this possible?" Gina looked up from her work, wiping her hands on a rag that had seen better days. She studied the crystalline being for a moment, noting the genuine confusion and humility in his posture. This was probably the first time in his life that he had ever asked another species to explain their technology to him. "You're looking at it wrong," she said simply. "You think our machines are primitive because they look simple from the outside. But simple doesn't mean primitive. It means we've figured out how to solve complex problems with reliable solutions." She gestured toward the space elevator, its industrial framework stark against the chaotic sky of Infernus Prime. Every bolt, every gear, every backup system in that structure is there, because we learned the hard way that elegant solutions fail when you need them most. We didn't build this elevator to be beautiful or impressive. We built it to work. No matter what. Veltar's crystalline structure chimed with confused harmonics. But surely efficiency and elegance are signs of advanced engineering. Your machines use more materials, more energy, more complexity than necessary. Necessary for what? Gina asked. Necessary to work under perfect conditions? Sure, your technology is more efficient when everything goes according to plan, but we don't live in a universe where everything goes according to plan. She pointed toward Earth, barely visible as a distant point of light. Humans learned engineering in the worst possible classroom. We evolved at the bottom of a gravity well that wants to kill us, surrounded by hard vacuum that wants to kill us, on a planet that tries to kill us with storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, and ice ages. We never had the luxury of assuming our technology would work perfectly. We had to build machines that would keep working even when everything went wrong. The conversation was overheard by other alien dignitaries, who began gathering around despite themselves. The concept was so foreign to their way of thinking that they couldn't help but listen. Every human machine is designed with the assumption that it will break, Gina continued, but we design them to break gracefully, in ways that don't destroy the whole system. We build in redundancy so that when one system fails, 3 others can take over. We use materials and methods that can be understood and repaired by the people who operate them because we know that eventually everything needs fixing. Ambassador Zephyr of the Ethereal Collective, his gaseous form shimmering with confusion, spoke up. But this approach seems so wasteful. Why build 3 systems when one perfect system would suffice? Because perfect systems don't exist, Gina replied. You can make a system work perfectly under specific conditions, but conditions change. When your perfect system encounters something it wasn't designed for, it doesn't just fail, it fails. Catastrophically. Our wasteful approach means that when conditions change, our machines adapt and keep working. The truth of her words was scattered across the landscape around them. Every alien construction project had failed completely when faced with unexpected challenges. The human elevator had faced the same challenges and kept building. Sua joined the conversation, her tablet showing system diagnostics from the space elevator. Look at these readings, she said, displaying data that made several alien engineers gasp in recognition. Our elevator is operating at 97% efficiency, despite everything this planet has thrown at it. Your perfect systems achieved 0% efficiency because they stopped working entirely. The implications began sinking in. The aliens had spent millennia optimizing their technology for perfect conditions, creating machines of incredible elegance and efficiency that worked beautifully when everything went according to plan. But the universe rarely cooperated with plans. Humans had taken a different path. They had optimized for reliability, redundancy, and repairability. Their machines might not be as efficient under ideal conditions, but they kept working when ideal conditions disappeared. In a universe full of hostile environments, unexpected challenges, and Murphy's Law, that was actually the more advanced approach. Word began spreading through the galactic communication networks faster than light. The Ethereal Collective, who had been spreading jokes about human primitiveness for weeks, now whispered different stories. They spoke of human engineering that simply refused to break, of machines that worked when nothing else would, of a species that had learned to build technology that could survive anything. Defense contractors throughout the galaxy began sending urgent messages to their governments. If human technology could work reliably under the most extreme conditions, what could it do in military applications? Trade delegations prepared for immediate departure to human space. Exploration companies realized that human-built equipment might be the key to reaching previously impossible destinations. Tay and Sua stood together watching the sunset over Infernus Prime, their crude machines still working steadily despite the day's trials. Around them, alien dignitaries who had arrived expecting to witness humanity's humiliation were instead negotiating technology exchanges and defense contracts. The laughter that had echoed through the proving grounds had been replaced by the sound of respectful conversations and serious negotiations. "Think they finally get it?" Sua asked, watching a group of crystalline hegemony engineers taking detailed measurements of a human repair drone. "Some of them," Tay replied. "The smart ones are starting to understand that there's more than one way to solve engineering problems. The really smart ones are realizing they might have something to learn from us." The trials of supremacy had ended, but their impact was just beginning. For the first time in galactic history, the most advanced civilizations in the universe were looking to a supposedly primitive species for engineering inspiration. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most sophisticated solution isn't the most elegant one. It's the one that works when everything else has failed.